Keep listening to 2020 Vision Radio.
Legendary, promoting the vision of ordinary legends. Tune into 2020 Vision Radio every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. with the Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons and Desil Hamilton.
Legendary is a show promoting the visions of ordinary legends, and I am Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons along with my fabulous co-host Desil Hamilton.
I am Desil Hamilton. I'm excited as well to be here for Legendary, just to uplift and enhance people and show what people in our society are doing to uplift our country and the nation.
Call in live on WhatsApp via 869-669-7312. Our direct mobile number is 766-7312 and our landline number is 469-7953. Overseas callers can call in on 917-460-2187. Legendary, live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. on 2020 Vision Radio.
Just like you. If you take a look inside, you see the great things that people do. Some things are just never said, no. Story of my life, ordinary person just like you. If you take a look inside, see the great things that people do. Changing lives day and night, but nothing I do ever makes the news. Still I have to do what's right, to the King of all kings all praise is due. Yesterday I was on a train, a little boy asked me my name. He said, sir, I've seen you before, tell me who are you? Said I am a legend that you never heard of before. I said I am a lion, but you never heard me roar. I am a hero that nobody celebrates, but if one person remembers my name, that means I made a change. I'm the man who cooks the food and feed the street people in the afternoon. I'm the lady with the broom, sweeping the halls of your son's preschool. I'm the soldier who's up all night, making sure everything's alright. And if you ask me, I'm quite fine, being an ordinary person doing what's right. Yesterday at the football game, a little girl asked me my name. She said, sir, I've seen you before, tell me who are you? I said I am a legend that you never heard of before. I said I am a lion, but you never heard me roar. I am a hero that nobody celebrates, but if one person remembers my name, that means on the ocean of fame I'm an unknown sailor. I'm the percussionist playing with the whalers, the one with the shaker, the mover and shaker. My name wasn't on the front of the paper, but me not cater. Much more than the work is greater. Creation glorifies creator. So all deeds done are in the name of my maker. I am a legend that you probably never hear about. Words from the lion's mouth. I am a hero that nobody celebrates, but if one person remembers my name, give praise, that means I made a change. Story of my life, ordinary person just like you. If you take a look inside, you see the great things that people do. We're out here changing lives day and night, day in, day out. BBC don't show it, CNN don't show it. He's out. Some things are just never said, no.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, good evening. Welcome to Legendary. And this evening we have a very special show lined up for you in celebration of International Women's Day and by extension Women's Month. And so before we get into the show, I just want to say special greetings and happy birthday greetings going out to a few persons in the St. Thomas's constituency, and that is Trishna Jeffers, as well as our very own Rensford Dorr, and teacher there from Vaughn's Village, that's Leroy Cozier. So happy birthday to all those who are celebrating. I think Mr. Rogie Hanley celebrated yesterday, so a happy belated birthday to Rogie as well. This evening, we do not have my usual co-host, Daniel Hamilton, with us. He's unable to make the show this evening. However, we have sitting in for him none other than Mr. Shanwai Caesar. So welcome, Shanwai. Thank you for joining us this evening. And of course, in celebration of Women's Day, we have Dr. Janice Daniel-Hodge in the house. And so we welcome her to Legendary, and she will be telling us a bit about her journey as the leader of the Nevis Reformation Party and her political aspirations. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I now turn it over to Shanwai, who's going to read Dr. Daniel's bio.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen out there in listening in Radio Land and on Facebook. Miss Dr. Janice Daniel-Hodge, staunch advocate for sustainable development in small island developing states. Her father was the Right Excellent Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel, and her mother is Rosita Daniel. She has two adult sons and one granddaughter. She attended the Ivor Walters Primary School, formerly the Prospect Primary School, and then the Charlestown Secondary School. She holds a bachelor's and master's degree in biology and a PhD in creative leadership for innovation and change. She is an ocean lover, music lover, and sports enthusiast. Dr. Daniel-Hodge lectured at the Alabama A&M University and at the University of the Virgin Islands, served as the USVI governor appointed liaison to the United States Coral Reef Task Force. She served on the Research and Public Service Advisory Council and the University of the Virgin Islands. She served as the UVI Water Resource Research Institute Advisory Board, the chair of the U.S. Virgin Island Marine Park Advisory Committee. She received the USA Presidential Partnership Award for her exemplary work in establishing the first territorial marine park in the U.S. Virgin Islands. She developed a creative model to help find solutions to complex environmental problems. About her work here in St. Kitts and Nevis, she is the founder and managing director of the environmental consulting firm Caribbean Development and Environmental Consultant Inc. Cadenco, coordinated projects to establish the St. Christopher and the Nevis Conservation Foundation and the first marine management area for St. Kitts and Nevis. She developed and managed a model for sustainable use of the marine resources in St. Kitts and Nevis and served as the director and chairperson of the Bank of Nevis Limited. Currently, she serves as the director at the Bank of Nevis International Limited. She is the co-founder of the Newcastle Bay Foundation to help promote sustainable livelihood and a sustainable use for marine resources. Community empowerment by securing grants for community projects, raising awareness about environmental issues, and provide technical support to enhance livelihoods, especially for fishers. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, her political career. Dr. Hodge has an innate love for Nevis and a keen interest for the welfare of the people of Nevis. She is deeply concerned about the eroding democratic principles and that with a clear vision and a sense of purpose, Nevis can be put back on the path of sustainable growth to provide hope and prosperity for our present and future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Hodge was elected political leader of the Nevis Reformation Party in 2020 and will be contesting in Nevis 4, St. James Parish in the next local elections. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Janice Hodge.
Good evening, Janice.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be on Legendary, and quite a very impressive resume. And so we're just going to kick right in, because this show is letting people out there in our viewing audience and listening audience get to know Janice the person. Okay, so we really want to know, we are so happy to have you, and so we want to know, tell us in a nutshell, who is Janice the person? Not the politician or, the educator, just the person.
So, good evening and thanks for having me. I'm quite delighted to have accepted the invitation and to be here on Legendary. And as you would have indicated earlier, today is the birthday of Mr. Dorr, someone who I know very well, and so I would like to add my voice to yours and extend happy birthday greetings to him. So, Janice the person, I would say, the first word that comes to mind is a very down-to-earth, very caring person, and someone who understands and recognizes that we have one creator, all men were created equal, and so all men, and of course I include women, has a right to be able to enjoy a type of life and a type of living, and we must create the type of environment where all persons feel equal. No one should feel less than any other because of any man-made creations or any man-made situations. We all have a right to enjoy the environment which was provided to us by our Creator, and I feel very strongly that whatever we can do to protect our natural resources links directly to the well-being of all persons. And so, in a nutshell, very down-to-earth, very realistic, but also very goal-oriented, and someone who is very passionate about the needs of persons, and that no one should be looked at as less than, no one should feel less than, and that once we can put ourselves in a position to ensure that we provide the best opportunity for those around us, then I think we would be in a much better position overall.
Okay. Tell us a bit about your time in the UVI. I know you would have done some lecturing at the University of the West Indies. Can you share with us a bit about, your past experiences as an educator?
Yes, well, it's actually University of the Virgin Islands.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And prior to that, I lectured at the Alabama A&M University. And for me, really, during that time, it was advancing myself, getting myself more acquainted in interacting and understanding the concerns that students would have had. And I can recall when I first started lecturing at Alabama A&M University, I would stand in front of the class and everybody would be saying, where's the professor? when is the professor coming? And I stood in front of the class and I said, I am the professor. Stop joking, man. Stop joking. You know? Come and sit down. Take your seat. And but at the end of the lecture, everyone was quite impressed that even though I may look small, I would borrow from our former premier, I was small but talawa, because they understood right at the beginning what was required, what was expected, and the overall outcome that we wanted to achieve. I was quite fortunate at the time that a number of students from Nevis were actually attending Alabama A&M University as well. And so it would be a great pleasure after in fact, when I met those students, I was actually pursuing my master's at the time. Okay. And so we would interact quite often. And after lectures, after classes, we would all gather at one central location. And once I completed my master's and I was offered a position to lecture at the university, it was, okay, I'm the lecturer now, you guys are still students.
Yes.
Yeah, so, but it was all good. And having that camaraderie, it was quite important in terms of us having that confidence that we needed to know that we could survive and do well in that environment. I later moved to the U.S. Virgin Islands, and again I was offered an opportunity to lecture at the University of the Virgin Islands. Of course, my education was in sciences, and so that's what I would have lectured most of the time in. And again, I was fortunate to meet students from Nevis, and so I felt quite comfortable being able to interact with them, not seeing them as students and myself as lecturer, but seeing everyone that we had one thing in common, that we were all from Nevis and we want to be able to excel and come back to Nevis and provide and contribute to the development of Nevis as best we could. So it was really a situation where I would have gone ahead of some of my fellow Nevisians, but we maintained that camaraderie, notwithstanding that I was lecturer and they were still students. Yes. We all were able to relate and integrate and help each other as best we can, because you would know that sometimes students would see things from one perspective, and as a lecturer you're not seeing what they're seeing. Yes. And so I had that benefit of being able to hear from some of them, oh, this student said you this or you did, and you didn't go over this properly. So at least I could go back the next time without them knowing that I heard that and go over what it is they had a problem with. So I was quite pleased with my ratings at both institutions, because I had that connection, not as being over someone, but yes, as someone who's able to assist and help with those persons in terms of their development. Yeah.
All right. Excellent.
Well, still in getting to know who Janice is, as a little girl, did you ever see yourself as someone who would now be in such a leadership role? Did it ever occur to you that, yes, I will definitely one day grow up to walk in the footsteps of my father, or anything like that? Did that ever occur to you when you were younger, like growing up in your Ivor Walters days, probably?
Actually, no. I saw myself growing up as a very carefree person, doing what I felt comfortable doing, and in terms of even as I matured and got into my professional development, I really did not see myself in certain roles. I really saw myself as someone who could empathize with others and share their concerns and help to put them in a better position. And so, I mean, as we speak about this present position as leader of the Nevis Reformation Party, it is not something that I envisioned. It's not something that I set out to say, well, this is what I would want to be. It's just a matter of, I think I heard Mr. Herbert, Everett Weber Herbert said the other day, history is not what you make, but history just happens. And so the whole concern about the direction in which Nevis is going, was going, and the concern that persons really deserve much better in terms of what the government ought to and should provide for them, that really triggered something inside of me that, we really deserve better as Nevisians, and we really just cannot continue to sit back and complain. And if we're in a position where we can try to initiate change and try to bring about the vision that we see Nevis, we know where Nevis was. We know that it was quite prosperous at one time, and that has a lot to do with the vision that NRP had for Nevis. And so it's just a situation where just so happened 50 years from when Nevis was, when NRP was established, 50 years after, we're back in that position where there's a sense of frustration, there's no real hope, no vision. And those are the things that really inspired me at a certain point in time, that Janice, is no sense to just sit back and complain about what is happening. You can contribute much more, and so I decided that whatever it is, I would give it my all and give it my best, because I think that we can put Nevis back onto a path of prosperity.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
I perhaps would have liked to ask this question later on, but seeing that you're on that path, I just want to ask you, comparing the type of leadership and governance that we have in Nevis now, in present day, if you were to become premier tomorrow, what would you do differently? Can you give us 3 things that you would do differently?
First of all, when one considers their position in a political office and as premier of Nevis, your first priority, of course, must be to look after the best interests of the person that you are representing. And so when you say differently, I assume you're comparing to what is right now.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's happening right now? We see where the ministers, the premier himself, they're I would say distracted. They're having to address their portfolios in St. Kitts, in the St. Kitts cabinet, as well as the Nevis cabinet, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult to be able to commit and to provide the type of assistance and service that you would need in order to put Nevis at the forefront. And so what we see happening is where Nevis is now, where we're entirely dependent upon St. Kitts. And as Premier, I would ensure that we would work tirelessly to put Nevis back on a path to prosperity, back on a path to self-sustenance, and whatever relationship we have with St. Kitts, it would be one that puts us in a much better position rather than one of dependency. So as Premier, I would ensure that the ministers and the Premier of Nevis focus on the affairs of Nevis first and foremost. I mentioned earlier that I'm very concerned about the welfare of Nevisians, and so I would definitely take a much more proactive and a much stronger role in terms of looking out for the welfare of Nevisians. The current Premier, his attitude towards businesses in Nevis is not necessarily in the best interest of Nevisians. And I can quote directly where he would have indicated that when businesses want to leave, that's a business decision. When businesses decide to lay off hundreds of workers, that's a business decision. And, definitely it cannot be just a business decision, because we would provide concessions, we would give different incentives, and it's not just because we want the business to be here. The reason why the businesses are here is because we want to create employment for our citizens and allow them to have a better quality of life. And so having that sort of hands-off approach that businesses can do what they want, that is definitely not something that I would look to. And the third thing, you said 3. So one thing that I would also do differently is to take the time to hear from the people what their real concerns are.
Yes.
If you're not able to relate to the people and understand what their concerns are, how can you then try to empathize and feel their hardships and feel their pains? We have seen where, certain positions would have been taken where people felt embarrassed, people were ridiculed because they're in a place of hardship. They would have lost their jobs. There are no employment opportunities, and so people are struggling. They're not able to put food on the table for their children. And rather than empathizing and trying to find ways to minimize those hardships, we see where, the current premier would make people feel ashamed and embarrassed because they're not able to provide for themselves. So just looking at off the top, it's a matter of being connected with the people, having empathy, and understanding that as a government and as premier, you would have that responsibility to ensure that the necessary policies are in place. I would go further and add that we're right now looking at COVID-19 and the impacts of COVID-19. And we know definitely that women are struggling, much more than they would have before because of the types of jobs that they would have had. And with the lockdowns and the different impacts, when school was closed, it's more than likely the mother that would have to be at home with the children, etc. So understanding the hardships that people are going through and trying to develop new policies that would ensure that even though the impacts of COVID-19 are more affect women more, we need to be able to understand how can we help these persons rather than saying, don't beg me for this or don't beg me for that.
Yes.
I know Nivision, I'm a Nivision, and I know that we are very proud persons. And if we get to the point where we're asking for assistance, if we need help, understand that, this is the last resort. Don't make us feel bad for reaching out and asking for assistance, because you never know what that person's next act may be.
Yes.
And if we're in a position to try to put the necessary policies in place, if we're in a position where we can seek assistance, the number of persons right now who, we speak about the severance pay situation, and, where is the concern of how these people are taking care of their obligations at home? Where is the outcry? And we're looking at a situation where we have a unity government, and the funds that we get, the funds that we receive in Nevis to take care of our obligations, civil servants, etc. Can't we ask the Prime Minister? It's one government. Can we ask the Prime Minister to give an advance or make some arrangement? But to throw your hands up in the air and say, oh, well, that's not my responsibility. That goes to the core of neglect. And those are the things that we cannot afford to sit back and take it as if this is the norm, this is the way that it's supposed to be. That's not the way that a government is supposed to operate. Government has to represent and look after the welfare of its citizens and not pass the buck on to somebody else. In Nevis, the buck stops with the Premier. And he is in a relationship right now with Team Unity, and so he should be able, he and the other 2 ministers who indicated that we are going to think is to give Nivisions better representation. Where is the representation?
Out to see with the investors, perhaps. And you're so correct, Dr. Daniel, because interestingly, and I don't think many Nivisions notice the position or fully appreciate the position that Nevis is in. Here it is. We have a premier who is a premier of Nevis, but also a minister of the federal cabinet. But yes, still, even with those influences, you can't bring anything back to Nevis, not even severance. And it's scary, because then one have to wonder, what's the point? Really, what is the point?
Well, Honorable Cleo Stapleton Simmons, what I would say is we must understand the purpose for which we take action.
Yes.
And if our purpose is to enhance the welfare of Nevisians, if our purpose is to put Nevis in a place of prosperity, then our actions would be guided accordingly. If our purpose is self-serving, if our purpose is not looking out for the best interests of Nevisians, then we can expect what we are seeing now.
Yes.
And so the purpose and the reason why you are in a position, we must go back to why are we here. And why I would want to be in that position is because I know that we can do so much more to help Nevisians and to move Nevis forward. When you look at leadership and the different styles of leadership, you have the autocratic type of leadership where persons, I am king, I am emperor, and do as I say and do as I do.
Napoleon.
Right? That is definitely not the type of leadership that I would want to provide, and that is not the type of leadership that is commensurate with what the NRP stands for. NRP is a party for the people. Decisions and actions are driven by what would be in the best interest of the people and of the society. And so right at that fundamental issue, understanding that we are in it for the betterment of Nevis, for the betterment of the citizens, and those would decide our actions and our decisions. So
yes.
So as you mentioned, there are different styles to leadership, and leadership is not something that I think that everyone has that leadership ability, and so do you think that the position you talked about the position of Nevis compared to back then and now, do you think that the leadership approach that our premier has is somewhat over his head, meaning to the extent that do you think that he should or could have focused more on Nevis and the affairs of Nevis and maybe given somebody else an opportunity to do maybe the federal work on the other hand or something to that degree? So do you think that that is something that he should have probably stopped at, as in let me keep this as my main focus as to make sure that Nevis is right where it's supposed to be versus then juggling, because I think that it's very hard to run one country and still have to manage the affairs of a federation. So do you think that that is something that you would encourage then for him to do or something like that?
Well, I think you asked the question and you answered it at the same time, right? Because you said it's very hard to juggle. And I would say most of the times when we listen to the Premier speak, you would hear about all the accomplishments in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, how much visa-free travel there is. As the leader, as the Premier of Nevis, have we heard about the different policies, the different ordinances that were put in place to advance Nevis? Do we hear about what is happening? What are the accomplishments under this government for Nevis? You can't really find many. I would leave the film for a little bit later. But you see, the Premier of Nevis is but a minister in St. Kitts, and he has to answer to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is his boss. So you have to perform for your boss. he is the boss in Nevis. And if he doesn't perform, he's the boss. He's not going to reprimand himself.
That's true.
Right? But I can assure you, the Prime Minister would expect, Minister Brantley, what did you do in Foreign Affairs? What did you do in Civil Aviation?
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
Right? You cannot serve two masters. And if I am my own master, I am not going to reprimand myself because I have to satisfy somebody else. And so NRP would have taken a position that we would not sit in the federal cabinet and the local cabinet. No one minister would do that. And that is a party where it's not looking to advance self achievements. It's a party that's looking out for what is the best interest for Nevisians. And that fundamental philosophy that there are enough bright Nevisians, there are enough persons that we can have 5 sitting ministers in Nevis and still find 3 additional ministers to represent us federally. And we speak about the leadership style and the, what are we trying to accomplish? Once you have 3 ministers in St. Kitts and 5 ministers in Nevis, now 8 persons coming together to discuss the advancement of Nevis compared to 3. What do you think? What do you think? We understand that in leadership, one of the things that we have to be able to do is to understand and appreciate diversity, appreciate different perspectives. So if you have 3 persons who are not performing in Nevis, the same 3 persons go to St. Kitts, how do we expand? How do we get Nevis to a different level if we have to deal with, they're talking to themselves? No. If you have 8 persons, then you get different perspectives. DJ X-Ray can tell me what the music, what the entertainment industry is interested in, what they want to do. You could tell me about education. Honorable Cleo Stapleton Simmons could tell me about the financial institutions and women. So you need to be able to diversify, have a broader base to deal with, rather than just 3 persons feeling that they are all that Nevis would need to deal with Nevis and St. Kitts. We definitely would not be able to advance with that type of governance.
Yes, and that is so correct, but from my personal view, I thought it was more about the salary than governance, so I'm not surprised by what we have happening, because I always think that was the main point, even listening to the campaign, the previous campaign that just went by in June. I just want to ask you, Dr. Daniel, now as a woman, coming into the political arena and taking such a big stance, what really empowered you as a female, first of all, to really take that stand and make that decision that I want to represent my country in this capacity?
I don't want to disappoint you, right? But I really did not look at it as a female. I looked at it as someone who can contribute more. And the female part would come around when you start looking at some of the challenges. That because you're female, you now have a different set of standards that you have to operate under. But when I recognized that Nevis was going downhill, the CCM government would have won 3 seats, campaigned heavily that they would make things better for Nevis. They won 3 seats. We know that they were not performing, and then they campaigned that they would win all 5 seats in the local election. And how can one sit back and not do anything when you recognize that these people are putting a picture out there that they are the best thing for Nevis, and we know that they are not. And so when we look at so what moved me really, it was really like an internal conviction. It wasn't anything from the outside in terms of persons convincing me or saying, oh, you can do this and that sort of stuff. That happened a while back.
Yes.
But it really did not move me. But when I really looked at the situation and the direction in which Nevis was going, I felt that I would be in a worse situation if I did not do anything than to do anything. And I could say, so now that I've jumped in and I'm experiencing some of the situations that come along with a woman in a leadership position, not just any leadership position, but leader of a political party, then you start to realize that it's not really a level playing field.
Yes.
It's not really what you can contribute and what you can bring to the party. It's still questions about whether or not, the whole world is going with women, so let us go with women, or it's not a situation where you were just lucky and that sort of thing. But I think women, because of the way that the world is operating right now,
yes,
and all of the changes that we're seeing, and the fact that women by nature are more empathetic, women by nature are more caring and can recognize what the issues are and what really needs to be done. Now, I would say one particular situation that came to the fore for me, stepping into this position, is how easy it is for men to go around and socialize and take numbers and say, okay, yes, you have a good idea, let's sit and discuss it tomorrow.
Yes.
A woman does that now. You go out and you socialize and you take numbers, or you give somebody your number. Immediately people start to say, oh, she like he. So those are things. So now, as a woman, you kind of like, well, I wonder if, even though this person tell me they have some great ideas and they would want to discuss it with me, I wonder if people see me giving them my number, what they're going to think now. Is it something personal, or is it something to help advance the cause that we're dealing with? So those are some of the things that we have to deal with. And then also, what you sort of realize is that when as a woman in a leadership position, you also have to deal with some of the stereotypes.
Yes, very true.
Yeah, because generally men are considered to be more assertive, more competitive, and people tend to associate leadership with assertiveness and competitiveness and those different traits. But like we said, based on the times that we're in now and understanding that what is really required to deal with a lot of the social issues, deal with a lot of the economic issues, you really need to be able to empathize, you really need to be able to understand what type of social changes would be necessary in order to move the island forward. So there was a study done by Forbes magazine, and they did a study on emotional intelligence. And we know emotional intelligence is essentially, how you interact with people and these sort of things. And I was reading the study, and I was a little bit concerned when I read where they said that there's no real difference between the scores for males and females. There was no gender disparity. But as I read further, what it indicated is that emotional intelligence covers a broad spectrum, and women would score higher in, social inclusion, interrelationship areas, being empathetic, whereas men would score higher on being competitive and these different areas.
Yes.
So when you really dissect and you look at the environment that we're in now, for example, COVID-19 came upon us. That was a major change that no one really expected. And so how do we deal with these changes? We have to be able to empathize with persons, people who have lost their jobs, and we would have to be able to relate, be able to sit down and understand and speak with them. It's not just about being assertive. It's not just about how do you, generally a lot of males deal with economics. They put dollars over feelings, that sort of thing.
Yes.
The unfortunate thing is that here in Nevis right now, we're not really seeing the dollars. So you can't even say, well, they're not empathetic, but
So
they're
are we seeing
providing
the feelings.
well, we're not seeing the feelings either. We're not seeing the feelings because people are struggling, and you're not seeing any effort to try to make any adjustments, any changes into how things are done, and that comes directly from the fact that our treasury is so weak. We're not in a position to say, well, let's allocate $500,000 to deal with parents who have school-age children and how we can assist them and that sort of thing. There's really no room in the treasury to provide any assistance to persons. But at the end of the day, there's no room in the treasury for that. But we come back to the fact that you're part of the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
And while, it's one country, it's one federation, and we know that, COVID-19 impacted all of us. But certainly you can ask for a little bit more of the CBI money to help our people over here, if that's your interest, really. So, I don't want to keep talking, but we would have written to the Premier. I would have written to the Premier.
Yes.
And made certain suggestions to him, seeing that, the economy is on such a downturn and people are struggling. We asked him to put a moratorium on the, disconnection of utilities, disconnection of, electricity, water. And we also asked him to seek assistance from the federal government to advance the severance payments to workers, mothers, trying to get their children to school. So if these persons, if this is their money, they owe they're owed this severance money, can't you arrange to provide an advance to them during these times when they're suffering? And once you work out what it is you need to work out, then you just reimburse. Can't you go to a financial institution? If your relationship is not that good with the Prime Minister that he would do you that favor, can't you go to a credit union, a bank, and say, advance us $2 million to satisfy these severance payments, and once everything is sorted out, because to this day we cannot tell you why there was such a delay.
Yes.
To this day. I would have indicated before that I contacted even the Labour office in St. Kitts, and they're very tight-lipped as to why there is a delay. There's a certain processing period, and I would be fair. I would say that there were a number of persons who would have become unemployed because of the COVID-19. So maybe they had a huge amount of orders to process.
Yes.
But if you're really concerned and if you're really representing the people, so take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 PEP workers and put them up there to help so that you can,
yes,
provide the assistance to these persons. Yes. Do what is required. Don't just sit back and throw your hands up in the air and say, oh, well, it was more persons than ordinary, so we just have to go through the process.
Exactly. Bureaucracy.
Yes.
And to me, the explanation, I really couldn't understand it, because it's not like we didn't know. We suck of it. We suck of it from January. And so to me, if we had a proactive government, then naturally you would be planning, you would be thinking, listen, this thing is a global pandemic. This is a natural consequence. This is a likely consequence. And so let me start moving ahead, putting these plans in place. People are going to be laid off. I know I am heavily dependent on tourism. And so I have to make sure I have the severance. You start negotiating with the federal government in an early and timely manner, but we did not even see that effort. It was just like, oh well, sorry, I can't help you. And that is, it's totally unacceptable. And I just don't understand as Nigerians why we keep finding excuses, because you would hear people say, oh well, I'm gonna wait on them. You waited for this is something that you are entitled to, and in most cases some of them cannot even afford to wait. But I did not see any. I know definitely if this was to happen in any other country, even within the Caribbean, for example, Trinidad, Jamaica, you would have labor unions, you would have everybody making a big fuss, protest. And here in Nevis, Nevis just sat back very quietly. I am a parliamentarian, not even one person, maybe a few came and said, well, Cleon, what about this severance? But nobody really seriously came and said, I need help with this. I want you to put some pressure. I want you to even write a letter. I want you to, I want to have a match. I'm not getting that. And I feel our people are fast becoming so timid. They're just accepting. And you have to wake up. There comes a point when we have to wake up as a people and demand more. And if we are not going to do that, then at the very least in the next local election we should be making some changes. We have to definitely shift that momentum, because we can't just sit back. It's just unfortunate.
It is.
Well, what I would say, under normal circumstances, all that you just said, you would expect to see it. One of the reasons why I really felt compelled to get involved at this level was because Nevis, the people of Nevis, have become so fearful of the victimization.
I was about to say that.
Yes.
They have become so fearful that as much as they would want to say or do something, they just feel that, let me just be quiet. And I've spoken to a number of persons, and they have said, I cannot say anything right now, but wait till election come, right? And so while we're out and about and we're making the cries and asking for people to come out and say something and to be agitated, at the same time I understand the fear, because it's no longer where I fear for my employment. People are now concerned about, well, I have a daughter working so and so.
Yes.
Or I have a son working so and so. So I don't want to jeopardize their work. So so I can't say anything. So it's not that we have become so accepting of what is, but it's because of, and I keep talking about governance and the way that the system is operating right now, that people are really, really scared to come out and speak against the government. I mean, if we were to plan a march, right, many of the persons who are victimized would not
participate.
And I think, I think that it comes from, as you said, the timid nature comes because at the end of the day, you have to be heavily reliant on that person who holds the power, because then most private sectors would not be in a position to hire. So therefore you would definitely look towards the government for that level of support, that comfort. And it is like you're in an abusive relationship where you definitely cannot leave the man because you know what he can bring,
or the
woman because you know what he or she can put forth, but at the end of the day you're still getting the nasty end of the situation. And I think that is the situation that our Nevisians and those who are waiting severance money, because we still have, some of them are hoping that they could get a government job as well. So for you to walk out and march in solidarity for your severance pay means that maybe tomorrow that somebody might spot me in a picture, somebody might say this, they see me with Dr. Hodge and they see me with Cleon, and automatically that you are being labeled. And it was today a co-worker of mine, we were talking, and she spoke of the whole situation of people labeling you based on your interactions and not affording people opportunities in Nevis because they feel that you're associated with a particular party or whatever. And I think that in this situation, as you know, the interview went, are our people silent or they're being silenced?
Yes. And
so
yeah, I just want to give a comparison. So let's go back to 2008 when we had, was it Hurricane Lenny? When Four Seasons was, or Omar, I think.
Omar.
When Four Seasons was destroyed, and you had under Joseph Parry, as premier. Joseph Parry was able to keep the civil service afloat. So you had persons, regardless of which political party they support, and he was able to take people from the tourism industry, particularly those from Four Seasons, and create jobs for them in the civil service. And mind you, nobody was victimized. Nobody felt intimidated. Nobody had to worry about their jobs because, they didn't support the Nevis Reformation Party. And so I believe it has to do with the type of leadership, as you said, Dr. Daniel. It depends on the leader, because we do not have a leader, in my respectful opinion, who is for the people and for all the people. We have a leader who clearly shows you that he is only interested in advancing the life of persons who support his party. And that is quite ridiculous, because imagine in the 21st century, in a democracy, quote unquote democracy, that is the type of leadership style that we have. It's absolutely insane.
Honorable Simmons, Stapleton Simmons, what I would say is this, right? We have found ourselves in a situation where victimization rules. And you know why it rules? Because the only place that people can find employment really is with government. And that goes directly to the failure of the Premier to incentivize and attract foreign direct investment into Nevis, attract developments, so that you're not so heavily dependent on government. When you look at some of the other Caribbean islands and some of the initiatives that they would have taken to create employment for their people, that is the key point, The key point is, what is the purpose and what is driving the decisions of the government? And if it is the people and the need to create employment opportunities, you would find different businesses coming, because you know what? You would put the necessary ordinances in place. We are fortunate in Nevis to have a constitution that gives us certain exclusive rights. And when NRP was in government, I saw where we started with the geothermal ordinance. And St. Kitts does not have geothermal legislation. But when you're really trying to create livelihoods, and when you're trying to enhance the lives of your citizens, you would explore every opportunity that would be beneficial to the country and to them. And I dare say, if you go back and look at the legislation, or well, the ordinances that would have been passed under this government, there is nothing exciting or anything that would be appealing to foreign investors. You would find some amendments to some legislation that was put in place before. You would find some amendments that deals with dogs and whatever, but I must say We are one federation. But if you look at the acts that have been passed in St. Kitts,
Yes.
if you look at the legislation in St. Kitts,
Yes.
I mean, you would wonder, well, yes, it's a federal legislation and it can apply over here. What are we doing for Nevis to advance Nevis? I mean, I speak about the Honorable Akila Byron Nisbet and the ministry that she heads up, and you know, you keep hearing about creativity and innovation and these kind of things, right? And that's the path that we need to take.
Yeah.
You know, we cannot sit back and look at, you know, tourism and financial services in Nevis have been around since in the 1990s.
Yes.
What have we done in Nevis to diversify? What have we done to be appealing to investors? And one of the things that we would have to look at in government, once you put people first, and your main objective is to try to provide employment opportunities, to make your people be able to buy their own car, have their own homes, and you know, provide a payday for them, as they would say. You would work out how can you attract investors, and what would you do? You know, I'm not going to say all that we would do, but at least you would try to pursue some progressive legislation, try to be ahead of the curve.
Yes.
What is it that we can set up here in Nevis that nobody else is, right? I mean, I go around, I move around, I see them moving around with something they call formula, right? So why is formula not something that we can export? What are the limitations? What do we need to do?
Yes.
Something marketable.
Right. So once we're thinking about creating employment, and you remove a lot of the stigma, and you know, be progressive. Come out and say, well, listen, you know, maybe back in the times of my father, you know, burning a little molasses someplace or something. But now we're in 2021.
Yes.
So what do you need to set up a proper
yes.
facility to employ people and to
do the research,
develop products that you could, you know, then export and but no, all we're hearing is tourism, financial, you know. So we have a film, we're doing some films now.
Well, just a question. So we basically spoke about some of the challenges that you are observing in Nevis, and as the leader of the Nevis Reformation Party and as a female in the leadership role, what do you see yourself doing differently? Because I believe now that if this is the situation that we are in, that means you're going in to clean up a mess, right? Based on what you just outlined. So what do you see making you somewhat different, well, making you different, not somewhat, making you different to what is currently existing now?
That's a very good question, Mr. Caesar. And so first and foremost, you have to understand your purpose. And the purpose that I see for myself as leader and for the Nevis Reformation Party is to provide hope and to provide opportunities for the people of Nevis. And so I would have heard a quote one time with regards to Usain Bolt. Fastest runner in the world. But if you don't know where you're running or where you're going to, doesn't value anything, doesn't mean anything. You're running fast, but you don't know where you're going.
Yes.
So we have established that the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, put forth by the United Nations, would provide the overall framework for the development of Nevis, the sustainable development of Nevis. Now, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals addressed all pillars. It look at education, it look at poverty, it looks at environment, it looks at
women and children
right.
and that kind of stuff.
And the good thing about the SDGs is that they have indicators and they have targets. The SDGs allow you to achieve a balance between the social, environmental, and economic development of an island, particularly meaningful to small island developing states because of some of the issues that we have to deal with. And so once you have a framework to operate on, you know where you want to go, you know what you want to be able to achieve. So that is important. We have established that for a long time the economy has been stagnant, the economy has not diversified, and so we know at this time, in terms of a global currency, climate change and the impacts of climate change is far-reaching. We know that here in Nevis we suffer tremendously from the impacts of climate change, coastal erosion, impacts to our biodiversity, and even the agricultural sector with droughts, etc. And so once we understand where we're trying to go, one step at a time, whether we go as fast as Usain Bolt, we know where we want to go. The other thing that we would have to do then is to ensure, and this is where our good member from number 5 would come in, we need to have the type of legislation in place, ordinances in place that would allow us to accomplish and achieve the type of support, whether financial, technical, etc., because it would be clear for anyone wanting to invest to understand the path to which we are heading. And so progressive legislation is a must, and understanding a framework that has global appeal, global currency, that is also quite important. The specifics, we can't tell you everything.
Understand.
Yes.
Understand.
Yes, and you're so correct, because you definitely have to have a plan. There must be a purpose. Now, Dr. Daniel, I have observed something, and I don't know if you share my sentiments. I remember growing up, and I perhaps at that time, maybe around age 10, 12, didn't understand very much about politics. But I always followed simply because I come from a family who were very much active in politics and always supported the Nevis Reformation Party. Now, when I compare that time to now, before, people were all about, they had a vision, they had a purpose, as we speak. They wanted change. Like, people were into, back in the day, water, utilities, people wanted employment, people wanted to those who were involved in farming, they wanted land to farm and those things. Now I look at governance now, and I to me, from what I see, it seems as if governance has become somewhat associated with just winning elections rather than actually governing and bringing development to the country. And that has been the focus of this present administration, where they just want to win at all costs, any cost. And then when you win, what? It's a question mark. There is absolutely nothing. And for the 5 years in the office, in the administration, the focus is simply on winning elections. I am looking even in my constituency, and I see a number of movements, and these movements are not geared to any sort of providing any genuine support or guidance or assistance to people. It's simply about winning. It's about a show. And so to me, we have lost like the type of leadership and governance that your dad would have brought in the 80s and 90s, and even continuing to Joseph Parry. To now we just have this sort of polarized image of governance where it's just about winning, it's just about numbers, it's a numbers game. You just want to be out there doing something. It's about putting up, getting likes on Facebook. So every time you do something, I did this, and so people are not getting the true, you know, representation. And I know winning is important because you have to win in order to go into government, but I think we have lost track of governance in the sense of really providing for the people, wanting to promote the agenda of pushing Nevis forward. To now we just focus on, well, I can win, and once I win, that's it. And we see that quite clearly from the last federal elections. We, as you correctly said earlier, these three persons won their seats, went down. They are now members of the federal cabinet, and what? We are left with a question mark. Absolutely nothing going on. You hardly see them. We're not seeing any movement, and we're not getting, you know, our fair share of the bargain. And so sometimes for me it is somewhat disheartening. I don't know what is your experience, but can you just share with us your thoughts on that?
Well, you see, again, I mean, I hate to keep saying it, but it's about purpose, you know. What is the purpose, and what are the priorities? And where we are as a party, we have to recognize that NRP is for the people. NRP is about bringing enhanced livelihoods. NRP is about ensuring that we have a better quality of life for Nevis. And so, as persons would have said to me, yeah, but you can't do those things until you get into government.
That is true.
Right?
You have to win.
But in order to get into government, we have to overcome a system that unfortunately appears to be the new norm.
Yes.
The new norm. And the problem with that is that people make short-term decisions, and unfortunately they're forced into making those short-term decisions because they do not have means and ways of providing for themselves.
Yes.
And so one must question whether or not that is a strategy of the existing government to make people so destitute, make people so much in need that for a very short-term benefit they can get back into government. And so, yes, I share the same concerns, and what I also recognize is that for the NRP, it is not a campaign as usual. We cannot campaign and say the vision that we have for Nevis. We cannot campaign and say these are the things that we would do, because obviously, you know, history has shown that the NRP has been the better party for Nevis, and based on the philosophy of NRP, it will always be the better party for Nevis. But persons, unfortunately, are forced into situations, just like, you know, women who are out of work and they have certain moral principles, but they find themselves, because of the current economic situations, taking decisions that are not necessarily what they would ordinarily want to take. And all of these things we have to take into consideration. And so the NRP really has to find a way to inspire people, yes, to get people to understand that, you know, you suffer for the night, but joy would come in the morning.
Yes.
And so, you know, hold on. struggle a little bit more. Do not fall to the temptation of putting a government in place that is not looking out for your best interest. And so in opposition, it's not very easy, and especially in a small society such as this. And so we in the NRP, we have to understand that we have to work the same way that women have to work 2 and 3 and 4 times as hard to get half the pay.
Yes.
NRP has to work 3, 4, 5 times as hard in order to provide what's best for Nevis.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate that we are in that situation, because when you look at the history of NRP, when you look at what NRP stands for, and when you look at the vision that NRP has for Nevis, compared to no vision, on the other hand, it's like you say, it's disheartening for you, but I see it as a challenge, and I see it as at the right time people would make the decision, because like I say, I've been speaking to a number of persons, and they're feeling the pain. They took a chance, and they took another chance, and the way that people within that party, are treated, it gives you an indication.
Yes.
If you can treat your father a certain way, well, what says for me? How would you treat me? And so if you cannot treat, the people, and I try not to call too many names,
Yes.
but if you can have no use for your founder and for your father, for your, own self gain, then, I mean, why would you care for me?
Yes.
As John Doe.
Yes.
And so we look at these things. We look at these things as examples of how people think and how they operate. And I must say that I do trust and hope that the newly transformed NRP, as we say, recognizing the diverse group of persons on the slate, understanding the vision that we have, understanding that we operate based on certain principles. NRP was founded on being inclusive, being innovative, providing empowerment of people, etc. A number of principles that really resonate with me, and which each of us subscribe to as members of this party. I do trust and hope that people will recognize that this is a time, or else, when as they say, when the bucket bottom drop out,
Yes.
you can't hold no water at all. The
That
bottom is rusty now. Let's not let it drop out.
is
But
so true.
but as Cleon said, you spoke about the way that let me say, quote unquote, let me not say, the way campaign has been done then versus now. How would now the NRP party strike that balance to hit that modern day politics or that modern day campaign of social media? We live in a social media era, believe it or not. We get our source. If we want something, long ago you probably would have had to wait for the newspaper to reach your doorstep. Now it's at the click of my fingers. And I think that the game changers right now are the upcoming voters who are new to the system. And we have, the NRP government party would have to now find a way to strike that balance between modern day politics and how that traditional way of getting across the message. So what would the NRP party do to strike that balance?
All right, so I think that's a question that Cleon or I could equally answer, because we're both, part of the party. What I would say is that oftentimes we focus a lot on, the modern day politics is not just about social media. There's a whole lot more associated with modern day politics beyond social media. But we recognize that that's a force that we would have to deal with. But we also recognize that there are a number of persons who are not necessarily part of that demographic, and we would have to reach them as well. Yeah. So, in terms of when you look at the party right now, we do have a good cross section of persons, and I mean, we spoke about leadership and the different things that we look at. I am someone that really believe in diversity, really believe in getting input from a number of different sources in terms of what would be required in order for us to move forward. So, having our youth arm, which is quite proactive, very intimate with what's going on, what are some of the issues that that demographic is dealing with, I think that's going to be a critical part in terms of how we move forward. And our youth arm is not a youth arm just for show. It's not a youth arm that was copied. It's a youth arm that has been there for a while and is established with a purpose and quite instrumental in terms of how we frame some of the messages and these different things that we would want to do. So we embrace our youth arm. All of our arms are pretty much a significant part of our decision-making processes, and so I think that we would be able to deliver the type of messages. One of the things that I could say from my perspective is that whatever message we put out, it's what we intend to do. We are not a party that would put out what we think people want to hear if we cannot deliver, if we do not think that we can deliver. And so once we're able to sit down and go over ideas and go over thoughts, once we put out, messages, then for sure we intend to deliver on those. I think maybe Cleon might want to add on that with regards to the social media and how we would, capitalize on that.
Yes, certainly. So we're quite aware that we need to reach perhaps the younger generation, the millennials, and so we have started our initiative in terms of our social media outreach. You perhaps would have seen it on Facebook, and so we have really been out there driving our message through Facebook, through other means of social media. We have started to do a number of shows, just trying to reach people who are, so much technologically inclined. What we would love to do, though, and we are working in conjunction with Vision 2020, is have a voice on the radio, because we still want to reach those people who are not so technically advanced, and they still listen to the FM band or the AM band, and they're still into the radio. In Nevis, quite a lot of people still do that, and so we want our voice to be heard and to reach everybody, all classes of people, young, old, those who are into technology, those who not. We want to reach everybody, and we think it is very important for this election cycle that we are able to reach a broader audience, because NRP have a very strong message, and we want people to hear us, not just see us on Facebook, see pictures, but we want them to hear us, to feel our message, to understand our passion, and how how fed up we are with this system. We want people to not only understand the message of change, but we want them to feel it, because we know a lot of people silently trying to cope. And we want to inspire people to tell them, listen, you have to take the leap now. Now is the time. This is the time. You cannot wait and say, the next 5 years, because who knows where we would be in another 5 years.
The bottom would follow.
Yes. And so we want people to just take that leap of faith with NRP. And you're going to hear a lot of things about us, where people talking about, NRP now coming with women, and we NRP now come in with women and people talking about, should we take them seriously? Yes. And I want people not to focus so much on the females. I want them to look at the individual persons and their mission. We are all about change. We are about people advancement, and we really want to push those specific agendas. So I want people to be able to give us a chance.
Okay, nice.
So I guess I have to say, we're going to take a short commercial break and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Thank you for making 2020 Vision Radio your choice, your choice, your choice, your choice.
Legendary, promoting the vision of ordinary legends. Tune into 2020 Vision Radio every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. with the Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons and Desil Hamilton.
Legendary is a show promoting the visions of ordinary legends, and I am Honorable Cleo Stapleton Simmons along with my fabulous co-host Desil Hamilton.
I am Desil Hamilton. I'm excited as well to be here for Legendary, just to uplift and enhance people and show what people in our society are doing to uplift our country and the nation.
Call in live on WhatsApp via 869-669-7312. Our direct mobile number is 766-7312 and our landline number is 469-7953. Overseas callers can call in on 917-460-2187. Legendary, live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. on 2020 Vision Radio.
Just like you. If you take a look inside, you see the great things that people do.
Hi, I'm Sister C of 2020 Vision Radio. Vision Radio is a non-profit making online radio station. All staff working to serve you, the listening and viewing public. As we serve, we also see the need to serve those who are not technically savvy, especially the elderly, the shut-ins, and persons with disabilities, to which end we are looking forward to take 2020 Vision to another level, of course, with your generous assistance of taking 2020 Vision Radio to the airwaves on the FM frequency. Go to our GoFundMe page, 2020 Vision Radio, and make a donation of which you can afford. Help us to help everyone in this quest. Thank you for what you're about to donate, as we look forward to serving you online and in the not too distant future on 2020 Vision FM.
Some things are just never said, no. Story of my life, ordinary person just like you. If you take a look inside, see the great things that people do. Changing lives day and night, but nothing I do ever makes the news. Still I have to do what's right, to the King of all kings all praise is due. Yesterday I was on a train, a little boy asked me my name. He said, sir, I've seen you before, tell me who are you? Said I am a legend that you never heard of before. I said I am a lion, but he never heard me roar. I am a hero that nobody celebrates, but if one person remembers my name, that means I made a change. I'm the man who cooks the food and feed the street people in the afternoon. I'm the lady with the broom, sweeping the halls of your son's preschool. I'm the soldier who's up all night, making sure everything's alright. And if you ask me, I'm quite fine, being an ordinary person doing what's right. Yesterday at the football game, a little girl asked me my name. She said, sir, I've seen you before, tell me who are you? I said I am a legend that he never heard of before. Said I am a lion, but he never heard me roar. I am a hero that nobody celebrates, but if one person remembers my name, that means on the ocean of fame I'm an unknown sailor. I'm the percussionist playing with the wailers, the one with the shaker, the mover and shaker. My name wasn't on the front of the paper, but me not cater. Much more than the worker is greater. Creation glorifies creator. So all deeds done are in the name of my maker. I am a legend that you probably never hear about.
Good evening once again and welcome back to Legendary. I just wish to say a special good evening to some persons on the live feed, particularly Rhonda Brown Day in St. Martin. She's very excited. She has a birthday coming up on the 25th, so Rhonda will be looking out for that. Also, good evening to Judy Cornelius, Iona Dorr, Adele Dorr, Janice Moore. I see a Diana Lawrence, and I just want to say good evening to everyone. We had quite a few comments. Good evening, Warren. Quite a few comments on the live. We have not been able to follow up on them, but I just want to thank you all for making your contribution. Good evening, China. Yes, and I see. Is it Sindrine Daily? Good evening. Thank you so much for your comment, and thank you for tuning in to the show. We're having a good time here with Dr. Daniel, just giving you, our take on her leadership style as a woman in politics, and also her aspirations for the Nevis Reformation Party. As you all are quite aware, she is the leader. And so we are going to continue with our interview with Dr. Daniel. And if you have any comments, just continue to join us on the feed. We would definitely respond to you. And if you have any questions that you would like us to ask Dr. Daniel, feel free to either call in or to leave a comment on the live feed. So, Shanrai, over to you.
Yes, so welcome back, everyone, to our show. And just bouncing off of your father, everyone, as mentioned in the bio, your father is the late Excellency Sir Dr. Simeon Daniel, and that is a name that resonates with everyone. Growing up in school, I learned about him. Now as a teacher, I teach about him and so forth. Now, he has left an indelible mark on Nevis. Let me say St. Kitts and the Nevis, Nevis in particular. How do you see yourself? Do you think that those are big shoes to fill as when you become the new premier of Nevis?
I like the positive.
Well, I always believe in whatever you put in the universe, it comes right back at you. So.
So I would say, growing up around my father, of course, he was involved with politics ever since I was a young girl. But I would be honest that I used to enjoy when he would say, "Let's drive around the island," and he would drive around, and every time he sees somebody, he would pip his horn or he would put up his victory sign, and. That is something that I got from him, because I just thought that was the thing to do. So even up to today, when I drive around, if I pass somebody and not say hi or put my horn, is because maybe I didn't see you or something. Mm-hmm. But I just grew up feeling like that was, what was the norm, mm-hmm. so to speak. And so one of the things that he would have instilled in me, and sometimes when you're growing up, when you're younger, you don't really recognize and realize these things, but it's, that quest for self-determination. And he would always say, you can't change people, you can change yourself. Don't let anybody else determine your destiny for you, and those sorts of things. And it's only after I got older and I realized what he was really trying to do with regards to Nevis and preparing Nevis for independence, for secession, and that would have driven him to, try to develop Nevis as best as he can with regards to, the sixth form college, the financial services, Bank of Nevis, tourism sector with Four Nevis, with Four Seasons, allowing persons to own their own homes, the land reform program. And you could really see that he had a vision and he was working towards that vision in terms of putting things in place so that once Nevis, seceded, then it could sustain itself. And not so much with regards to secession at this point, but that quest for self-determination, being self-reliant, I think that is something, not just in me, but I think that is something that, a lot of Nevisians hold dear in terms of, being proud to be able to say that, I can determine my destiny. I can do what I want to do. I don't have to be, begging or reliant on someone else. And so while his quest was for secession and preparing Nevis for that, I think where we are now with regards to the struggles that Nevisians are going through and really what would have motivated me, it's really a higher cause with regards to long-term and sustainability. And back then, tourism and financial services would have been the way to go. And at this juncture, I really feel that the exploring the blue economy, looking at the environment, our natural resources, I think that is the way that we really ought to go now. And I think once we take that path with purpose, and we would be able to put Nevis back on a path to sustainability. And so I think while there may be different paths, I think the underlying purpose in terms of determining your own destiny, I think that really would put us in a position to where Nevis can be maybe where he envisioned it would be at some point in time. I think really right now he'd be very disappointed if he were alive and he would see the position that Nevis is in, because I know he sacrificed tremendously, and not just him, but the others in the party during that time who fought tirelessly. And I was saying to someone the other day, I can remember when I was much younger, and like Ivor Stevens and Levi Morton and those guys, there's a big guinea tree. I think Saza most about it some time ago in a post, and those guys would sit under the guinea tree and talk, and you'd hear them arguing and all this kind of stuff, and that kind of passion and excitement in terms of what they really wanted to see for Nevis. Of course, I was just running back and forth, and it didn't really resonate. Yeah, but now I could really understand what they were fighting so hard for, and it's really pleasing when you feel that you don't have to be dependent on someone.
Yes.
It's really pleasing when you feel that you have the wherewithal, you have the capacity. I mean, when we look at the number of Nevisians spread across the diaspora, even here in Nevis, and we know what we're capable of doing, but unfortunately the structures and the systems are just not in place to allow us to excel at the level that we would want to. And so while he would have put in place, banking ordinances and, those sorts of, legislative framework, then I think that is what we need to do now, shift a bit and look at a different area for advancing and putting us back into where we can not be mendicants as we are now, but put us back into a situation where we can move forward. So I would say big shoes to fill. I would be honest. Maybe it's in me, but it's not that I'm trying to fill his shoes, but I think I have the same passion and desire that he would have had with regards to knowing that you could contribute and help your fellow men much more. And so, but I have a different angle, different means of doing that. But I think the overall result is that we are no less than anyone else. We are not be, dependent on anyone else, and we are quite capable of looking after our well-being. Not putting the federal government off the hook, because we are a federation and we do have some, they do have some responsibilities to us. But I think those are the things that would put us in a position where we could help divisions in a time like this. During the pandemic, high unemployment, it shouldn't be where what we're getting from Sinkers is all that we have to survive on. We should be able to generate our own revenues and be able to have additional revenues to help persons in times such as this. So
yes, that's quite fitting. I just want to read a comment here, and Dr. Daniel, you perhaps would enjoy this, and this is from Judy Cornelius Webb, and she said, I remember Dr. Simeon Daniel when he was going to England to represent Nevis, coming around with a drum in the back of a truck and asking for support. My mother gave her last to support that move. So today, it hurts my heart to see Nevis in this state after so much effort by my parents to save Nevis. And I'm sure all of us could, well, perhaps not myself, but yes, but I think, most Nevisians can really resonate with this feeling of our national pride that we once had really being eroded. And I do understand what Judy is saying here.
Yeah, that almost brings tears to my eyes, because for the first time I heard the term "foal cock." I remember my father speaking about those days when they had to go to England, and he said they would drive around and people would sell their animals, and who didn't get them, so we give it to them and tell them you could sell it and take the money.
Yes.
And I remember he said people would even give us their foal cock. And I said, I thought a foal cock. you have the hen and a cock, right? Yes. But you never heard it used like that, foal cock.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So, but and trust me, I mean I said it before, and I would say it again, that I mean, he would be so disappointed to see the path that Nevis was on and where we are now.
Yes.
And I'll be honest. I really feel when I got that motivation to get involved.
The
right?
calling. Yes.
Yeah. I really feel that somehow he touched me in some way and said, Janice, you can do more, you can help. Because initially I would say people say, oh, your father used to be the premier, you don't want to get involved, you don't want to and I was like, no, that's not really my thing or whatever. And because typically I am not a very outspoken person. I'm not very aggressive. A lot of things that you would associate politicians with. And very private as well in many ways. And when I got that sinking feeling in the bottom of my stomach that Nevis is going downhill fast, and Janice, you have to do something. All the fears that I had, all the concerns about what people might say or may not say, and all these things just disappeared. And so now the other night I played I'm Not Afraid.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like all the fear has gone, because I feel like I have been touched to try my best, to contribute my best to ensure that we can bring Nevis back to where it was. And I must say, Cleon spoke earlier about the women and, maybe going back to the same issue in terms of how women respond to situations.
Yes.
And when women arise and say, enough is enough, and we really have to step forward and be the change that we want to see. I think that is really where a number of us are right now. And, you see a mother, and maybe she has 2 or 3 children, and you don't know how she gets it done, but she finds a way.
Agree.
To put food on the table. Yes. And when you have that love and that compassion, and you realize that you have to find a way, I think that's where, people like myself would come forward, because it's not about me anymore. It's about, the higher calling and the overall, societal impact that you would want to make. And so I can definitely share that sentiment with Judy that, I remember he said, we went around and we asked for 4 cock. The 4 cock stuck out in my mind, because I had never heard anybody say it that way before. And I remember listening to him talking about the trials that they had and what they were trying to do, and how they would go around and have meetings and explain to the people. He also told me about some of the backstabbing and stuff that was going on. It wasn't always a easy road, and it wasn't that everybody was on the same page and saying that this is what we need to do. But there's nothing like the conviction of someone when they know that they have a certain path to follow and they want to accomplish something. Mm-hmm. And when we look at what drives someone to do something, it's nothing greater than when you could look at your life experiences. And because of your life experiences, you now have a conviction to follow a certain path. Nothing can replace that. And so his conviction at the time was that Nevis can defend itself. Nevis can be self-sustaining, mm-hmm. can determine its own destiny. And, they move forward with that direction. At this point, I just feel that Nevisians, we don't need to struggle as we are struggling. I think that with more empathy and caring and putting people at the front and center of our decisions, we will be in a much better position. Because once people understand that you care for them and you're trying to help them, then they understand if you meet some hardships somewhere along the road.
That's true. Because
they know that you're genuinely trying to help
them, yeah.
Right? But when you recognize that people are just out for their self-fulfillment, it's very difficult, and it gets even more difficult. And to put insult to injury when you're going to embarrass people because they're out of jobs and they're not in a position to help themselves, then we have to understand that, no, we really do not deserve this type of treatment, and we must make the necessary changes to put people, give them the respect that they deserve, and let's put the government in place that would attend to the concerns and the interests of the people.
Yes. Dr. Daniel, you said something quite interesting, and it's a hashtag, because Elva and Ellie also said the same thing, and Janice Moore said the same thing earlier, and that is, Nevis, enough is enough. I just believe that, enough is just enough. We just had enough, and it's really time to make some changes. We have to do some shifting if we are really serious about
shift the momentum.
Yeah, saving Nevis and preserving Nevis, and that the fight really has to be now about Nevis. Time for Nevisians to wake up. Enough really is enough.
Well, what I would say, right, is that when we look at where we are now, how long we would have journeyed on the coattails of what NRP would have put in place before, and many of us would have benefited on what was put in place. You have children, I have children. What is in place for them? What do they have to look forward to? And while we presently are struggling, we must figure what is it going to be like for our children 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road. What will be in place for them? How long are we going to wait and think it's for handouts? When are we going to stop being lazy as a government and put the necessary frameworks in place that would attract the type of investment? Maybe, just maybe, the boatloads of people out there, boatload of investors. But maybe when they came ashore, they saw nothing. They didn't know how to operate. They didn't know what to do. So maybe they just packed up their bags and left.
Oh my.
And those are the things, is wanting to say, yeah, I want to be in government. But when you get into government, what are you going to do? And we have tried to be as clear as we can, that we have a framework, we have an understanding, and we know that you're in government to represent the people, to try to enhance their lives, give them a better quality of living, and to give the youths of today hope for the future, so that while they go off to get education, as far as they may go, they would at least be looking forward to coming back home, because they would know that there are employment opportunities for them. It would not have to be all in government, and they would have to be victimized.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, feel like imprisoned in your own country. So those are the things that we would definitely have to look at.
Okay. Well, I agree. Yes, so you must, something that stood out when you said is the honking of the horn. That's how I knew her. Because some reason this big Jeep would pass and it would blow me, and I was like, I don't, she, who should be? But every time she sees me, she blows the horn, right? And then when I did see her, coming around in terms of politics, and I was like, oh, that lady with us bloody horn. So now I see where it came from, And as you said, your father has instilled great morals and values in you to carry on, not his legacy, but create your own legacy. And once that is there, then I definitely would say that you are ready to take lead and ready to lead people of Nevis. But something I must say, growing up, I wasn't really a politics person, I know NRP, I know CCM, I just know somebody got to rule, right? But, growing up, getting older, you get into the whole system and you get to learn about it. Now, traditionally, you would see a group of men on a poster. One woman, 4 men, one woman, 4 men. And in 2019, Miss Universe, she gave a message to the young girls, and she said, take up space. And, I was like, okay, whatever that means, right? And from there on, I realized that women afterwards, maybe they were always there, but I just never paid attention. Yes. They started popping up. There you go, women all over.
Yes.
And one of the most talked about thing was women in politics. And from there on, I admired people like Mia Motley. You have the U.S. Vice President, Kamala Harris, and those kind of persons. What really stood out to me was a close friend of mine, Deanne Kentish Rogers, when she defeated the ruling premier in that regard. And so your party now is hoping to launch a slate of 4 women, right? And people are now saying NRP is dead. NRP dead. NRP gone to the dogs. How can you and your Fab 3 that comes with you rejuvenate NRP to restore it back to its glory days? How do you guys plan to do that?
Well, you say the 4 of us, but there's still one to come. We haven't decided, because of course there are 5 seats, 5 candidates, and so far we have 4, so we can safely say that it would be a majority women. Now, with regards to, I would correct you a bit. I would say maybe during the last federal election, maybe that's what people were saying, that NRP is dead. I don't think they're saying that right now. I don't think they're saying that right now, because once you recognize the slate of candidates that we have and what that slate stands for in terms of diversity, in terms of ideas, in terms of what we can bring to government, then I think you would see that there is definitely change in the making. It's not a matter that we are trying to get into government just because we want to change the government. We are campaigning on the fact that Nevis has suffered for a long time. I mean, when you look at the policies or the lack of policies to guide the government, when you look at how the different sectors are suffering, then you will recognize that we are bringing a sense of being re-energized. We are bringing a sense of understanding and being connected with the people. I think right now we're in a situation where there's a very large disconnect between the government, what the government stands for, what the government is striving to attain, and what the people need and what the people want. And once you have such a large disconnect, then you know it's not in the best interest of the people. I think it's in the NRP's, it's our modus operandi, basically, to stay connected with the people, understand the people, feel the people. I mean, we spoke about after Hurricane Omar, when the Four Seasons was closed, and the length to which then Premier Parry went to ensure that persons could have a payday. And the good thing about that is that it wasn't a situation where you're just trying to create jobs that had no value or no significance, or jobs that after 4 or 5 years you would not, jobs that didn't have any lasting impact. You look at the community centers, you look at NEPAC, the type of development that were done, even though they were there primarily to help get through a tough economic time, it still has lasting impact and benefit the communities up to this day. Right now we're going through a very rough period, and what are we seeing with regards to trying to create employment? What are we seeing with regards to the development of Nevis? I mean, you hear people talk about a roads government, and road governments are really governments that have no ideas, because roads only last for a certain period of time. And as we know, you get some funding, you try to invest it. You may use some to create an economy, but you invest some so that you can get some returns and at least have some sustainable growth. But what we're seeing now is a lot of roads, a lot of wars. And as we speak of wars, somebody brought to my attention that there were some works in Jessup's area, I think. We are trying to build a wall for someone and damage someone's kitchen. Yes. And the person has not been able to use their kitchen for weeks now, and total disregard, continue working on the wall, and the person is not able to use their kitchen and did not look back to try to see how they can assist that person. So that is quite consistent with the way that this government operates, really not looking out for the interests of the people. And so in terms of what NRP stands for and what we would do, I mean, I can't say it enough that once you have a sense of purpose, once you understand that people can only take care of their families once they have a payday, then you would try to ensure that you provide those opportunities for persons to be gainfully employed, and not just employed for a short term, not just employed for projects that would not have any lasting impact. And so those are the things that we would want to be able to bring back, to Nevis, and understand that it's not a government is for the people. I mean, I don't know how else I can say. You're in government to help the people. Exactly. Not to see how best you can position yourself so that when you get out of government, you don't have to worry about anybody, or not to see how best you can position yourself. So if people don't vote for you again, that's okay, because you're already set. You would have come into government with nothing, and you leave with, all of these riches. And so, no, we understand in NRP that government is about the people, representing the people, and trying to do what's in the best interest of the people. And so, right now we understand that the greatest issue on Nevis right now has to be unemployment, lack of employment opportunities.
Yes.
And so whatever we try to do, and we understand exactly how we would do it, the focus would be on creating job opportunities for the masses, not for a few, but for the masses. Yeah.
Yes.
But but that's great. I await your campaign road and see what you all have in store for we the people of Nevis. But to make it more specific to St. James, Nevis 4, that's
yes,
it?
Yes.
How do you see yourself transforming Nevis 4, St. James? From what I've known, you could correct me, it has always been a CCM-dominated constituency. So how do you see yourself transforming St. James constituency so that you could move them over to NRP?
Mr. Caesar, that's a very interesting question, and I can't tell you specifically how I'm going to do it, but one thing I would tell you is that you would have read in my bio that I love the ocean, I love music, I love sports, and the area of St. James is historically has been a fishing town, a coastal community. And once we speak about the blue economy and the ideas and the plans that come with the blue economy, then for sure St. James is well positioned to benefit significantly from implementation of a blue economy framework. In St. James's we have 3 fish landing sites. We have probably the oldest pier that used to deal with transportation between St. Kitts and Nevis. There's an area of high biodiversity value. There's a lot of sailing that goes on in that area, and so I'm not going to tell you specifically, but trust me, the blue economy, it has been traditionally blue. You said St. James has been traditionally blue, but definitely we will show how the green would make the blue economy work for St. James's.
All right. All right.
I like that.
Yes. Same here.
Yes. So as we're about to wrap up, Janice, I think, we had a very good show, very informative, and I hope the listening and viewing audience got to know you a lot better and really understand your vision for Nevis and for the Nevis Reformation Party. And I wish to just to say and to piggyback off of what you said, that I really want to encourage everyone out there to give NRP a chance. We are trying our best. We have reformed, reshaped, rebuild, rebrand, whatever you want to call it. NRP is now trying to make a difference, and so we are asking people out there to give both myself and Dr. Daniel, as leader of the party, your full support, because we really have to bring about some changes, in this Nevis, in the economy. If we love Nevis, we really have to do this for our country. And so I want to just tell everyone out there, come out, look at the Nevis Reformation Party. We are indeed the option for survival. Perhaps the only option for survival and saving Nevis.
They have the second bottom to hold up the water.
And so we have a proven track record, as Johannes would have pointed out on the comments on the live feed, and we have done it. We can do it again. We can do it time and time and time again, but we just want to be given the opportunity to serve the people of Nevis well. So that is my 2 cents, and I will give Janice the opportunity now to give her 2 cents while we bring the program to a close.
Thank you, Cleon. And so it's very easy for us to understand that based on our principles within the Nevis Reformation Party, what we stand for, we know that we do have the track record, and persons may say, well, you know, that was in the past, but raise up a child in the way that they should, and they would not depart from it. NRP stands for representation for the people. We would have taken the necessary steps to ensure that we would give you our full attention. We would not be spending half of our time in St. Kitts and half in Nevis. We do believe that there are sufficient persons in Nevis that we can have full representation across the board without persons having to work half-time here and half-time there. And understand that now is the time. Now is the time, because if we wait, who knows where we may end up. And so at this juncture, NRP is positioned. We continue to position ourselves to give you a very strong option, a very good option in the next elections, because not only do our present population depend on having opportunities, but also we must look at our children and what would be in store for them in the future. We have given the other party a chance, and we are not seeing how that would be beneficial for the future generations to come. NRP thinks long term. We think about people. We put people at the heart and center of our decisions. And in order for us to adapt and deal with this COVID or post-COVID environment that we have to deal with, we must be able to connect with the issues. We must be able to empathize with the persons, the struggles that they are feeling, and take the necessary positions to help put us in a better position. So, as Cleon said, NRP is the party that stands for the people, ready to work for the people, and we ask for your full support as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Shanwai, any last words?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it for yourself. You basically had a double whammy. You had the leader of the NRP and the parliamentary representative from Nevis 5, the Honorable Cleon Stapleton, giving you their intake and the reason why NRP is the best decision come the next local election. And we just pray that everyone makes the right decision and go with the choice that is best for Nevis. So.
Yes, and thank you so much, everyone. Lovely show, and I just want to encourage everyone to tune in next week, Wednesday, when we will have another epic episode of Legendary.
And tomorrow,
2020 Vision Radio.
That's a good 24-hour campaign.
Pull up. Okay, we're ready.
Yes.
No, I was just inviting everyone to listen. Tonight you would have heard from Cleon and myself, and tomorrow evening you would also hear from J.D. Keynes, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Cleon Stapleton Simmons, myself, and our youth arm leader, Sanello Willett, moderated by Dr. Andrea Busu. And you would be able to join us on Freedom FM as well as
Is it on Vision 2020 as well?
No, it would not be on Vision 2020. Okay. So that would be at 6 o'clock. There should be a live Facebook feed. And then so we would be on from 6 to 7 and give us enough time to get back and listen to Vision 2020 at 8 p.m.
Yes.
Yes.
So thank you, everyone. Be sure to tune in. We are going to, if you just check us on the Nevis Reformation Party website, you will get the information about the live feed for tomorrow's panel discussion as we continue in our effort to break glass ceilings as women. So thank you so much and have a good evening. See you guys next week.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to 2020 Vision Radio.
From Queen City, Nevis.
Legendary, promoting the vision of ordinary legends. Tune into 2020 Vision Radio every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. with the Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons and Desil Hamilton.
Legendary is a show promoting the visions of ordinary legends, and I am Honorable Cleo Stapleton Simmons along with my fabulous co-host Desil Hamilton.
I am Desil Hamilton. I'm excited as well to be here for Legendary, just to uplift and enhance people and, and show what people in our society are doing to uplift our country and the nation.
Call in live on WhatsApp via 869-669-7312. Our direct mobile number is 766-7312 and our landline number is 469-7953. Overseas callers can call in on 917-460-2187. Legendary, live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. on 2020 Vision Radio.
Just like you. If you take a look inside, you see the great things that people do.
Hi, I'm Sister C of 2020 Vision Radio. Vision Radio is a non-profit making online radio station. All staff working to serve you, the listening and viewing public. As we serve, we also see the need to serve those who are not technically savvy, especially the elderly, the shut-ins, and persons with disabilities, to which end we are looking forward to take 2020 Vision to another level, of course, with your generous assistance of taking 2020 Vision Radio to the airwaves on the FM frequency. Go to our GoFundMe page, 2020 Vision Radio, and make a donation of which you can afford. Help us to help everyone in this quest. Thank you for what you're about to donate as we look forward to serving you online and in the not too distant future on 2020 Vision FM.
Some things are just never said, no.